Land Rights Act is in place and the Provisional of Land and Assistance Act remains unchanged. So none of that is actually an issue here. Right.
So, no, it's not true that it is not happening at all or that it cannot happen. It is actually happening, and we are fighting it in court right as we speak. There's a massive problem with safety on farms and with farm murders, and we expect government to do more about it. We are pushing government to act on it. We feel government does not do enough, and we hold them accountable for it. We say we understand that some farmers would eventually say we've had enough of this, because they have exhausted their internal remedies. I mean, we've taken the song "Kill the Farmer, Kill the Boer" to court, and then to the Court of Appeal. And then the judges at the Constitutional Court decided for some reason to close the doors of the court on us. They never heard our case at the Constitutional Court. So where should we go with it next? Next, we must go abroad. Next, we must go to the United Nations. Genocide.
There are some who say that AFRIFORUM could have been one of the organizations who went overseas and spread such.
Yes, AFRIFORUM's position is that there is no large-scale land grabbing at the moment, or no genocide at the moment.
Is that their position? And so they're saying this
is their position.
This disinformation.
Remember, they were at the media ombudsman 5 times over the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And they won each one of those cases.
Yeah. And so they are not part of spreading that disinformation in the United States. Not at all.
No, so, definitely not.
So the United States is making this up, or at least...
Guys, another really, really insightful interview between this Agri SA chair, he's the chair of Agri SA Initiative, and this newsroom journalist. Really interesting. He actually exposes a lot of things. I think, first of all, the Agri SA, they have a list of farmers, all right, on their list. And, you know, this Agri SA boss now is actually explaining a lot of things, arguing that, giving details anyway of the how the Afrikaners in the US are being settled. He argues that most of them there, they feel that they have better opportunities in the US. Many of them were actually subjected to these farm attacks. They didn't feel safe. Many of them also operated in industries that were affected by BEE. And so they've gotten poorer and poorer as South Africa has gotten 30 years old into democracy. And then, you know, they feel that, you know, they have better opportunities in the US. He argues that, you know, the whole thing about the genocide, both him and the journalists were rambling around the whole thing with genocide, who is feeding Donald Trump with the information about genocide. They try to really, I think it's a really interesting interview. You guys have to watch it to the end. But one thing that really strikes me about this interview is how it was framed. It was framed to say that, you know, Afrikaner communities reject Trump's resettlement schemes or something like that. And I think one thing that really interested me at the end of this discussion is the question, as you guys could see in the video I made in the beginning of this video, on trying to find who has been spreading misinformation to Donald Trump. This is how it's actually being framed. That Donald Trump is constantly being fed with a certain misinformation about genocide in South Africa, especially towards white South Africans. And we could see the journalists really trying to really extract intelligence from this Agri SA boss on whether AfriForum is actually at the center of that, thing, spreading information to Donald Trump and to the US regarding genocidal claims against white Afrikaners in South Africa. And this Agri SA boss really gives some really interesting details on how the whole thing about the genocide campaigns have come to the fore. He actually thinks that he doesn't even know who has been spreading those rumors, but he speaks about how, you know, I think one of the interesting parts of this interview is how the journalist also tries to really argue that there's no wide-scale expropriation of land, which the Agri SA boss agrees, but he speaks about how there was a particular case that they had to go to court for, because the land was actually expropriated. And he speaks about the conditionalities of expropriation. I think for me this was really interesting, that I didn't know that these farmers in South Africa have their collateral. Their farms are used as collaterals, all right, for loans. Okay, so if at all there's any kind of compensation, he argues here, even if it's 60 or 90 or maybe some percentage of compensation paid, that the banks will get their money, their loans, but the farmers would end up not having anything. All right. And so the whole thing with the compensation, even if it's nil compensation, he argues here, it's not favorable to the farmer. And so that's why he thinks he's really deconstructing that law, arguing that this law about expropriation without compensation might not have led to a widespread grabbing of land yet. But he argues that it opens the door to wide-scale grabbing of land, and that's what actually they've been going to court for. There are many things he actually really try to break down, in this interview. Really interesting. But one of the things I think he really explicates clearly is the situation of the Afrikaners in the US. It actually appears that he's actually arguing, if I'm hearing him correctly, that many of them now in the US do not really know what next. They don't know what to expect. They have not really been, received clear instructions. Maybe probably because Donald Trump is trying to wait for President Ramaphosa to arrive first on Monday, and to clarify those issues before they will get the next instructions. And really interesting things he's speaking about their situation in the US, which I think is really important for all of us to really understand, so that we know probably what would be expected. I think there's still 8,000 applications that might still be processed by the embassy of the US, I think both in South Africa and also in the US. We don't yet know how this whole thing plays out. But this Agri-SA boss actually explains a lot of things in this interview. I think it will be really worthwhile that we listen to the end, and especially the end is where he actually almost in a way vindicates AFRIFORUM. Although I know AFRIFORUM has been undergoing a certain case regarding, I think it's been tagged treason because of their in their journey to the US anyway, to really speak and all of that. The AFRIFORUM, this AFRIFORUM boss, he actually speaks about how they constantly met silence in South Africa. Many times they went to the court to give their cases of these farm murders, and they really couldn't get any acceptable, responses from the judicial systems in South Africa. And so they had no other option but to go outside. And he's really explaining the details around that whole thing happened. So let's quickly listen to him and get some more clarity on this whole thing about the whole Afrikaner journey right now, which actually appears, maybe I don't know if probably they're resettled yet, if they're stuck in the US, but also the details regarding how it is that this Afrikaner community decided to seek external help in the absence of what they argue was, an exhaustion of the instruments in South Africa to really help address their claims for protection, their demand for protection from attacks on their farms. And share your thoughts in the comments.
We seem to have Dr. Diage back with us on the line. Dr. Diage, you can hear me. I was saying just moments ago that there is, of course, this resettlement of 49 Afrikaners that has sparked a lot of debate in South Africa and I suppose elsewhere. From the point of view of farmers that you interact with, you had a 40-strong delegation from, for example, from the Agri All Africa at Nampo. What is their feeling about this resettlement of Afrikaners in the United States? Are we going to see farmers going in their numbers?
I don't think so. Not, not yet, at least. We don't know who these Afrikaners are who left. We were not part of organizing them. We don't know what criteria they had to meet. We do have a list in SAAI, in our organization, of people who inquired about the opportunity, of about 1,000, but only 2 of them are real farmers. There are 3 categories on that list. There are quite a number of youngsters. Those are people who work in the United States every year. They drive big machines. They do harvesting on farms. But it's for a few months every year. And this year there will be 16,200 of them who will be going. And those who want to take up the offer of the USA government, they feel that they have better opportunities there than here. They would not have gone there if they had similar opportunities here. They feel they understand the system there.
Yeah.
Then the second largest group is actually middle-aged people who worked elsewhere in the value chain, a silo manager or a floor manager at a cooperative or a farm manager. The level where BEE is quite acute at the moment. And they say they cannot find a job again. Some of them have struggled for 4 or 5 years to find a new job, and they don't have a livelihood. They cannot take care of their families, and they believe they will be better off on that side. And then there's also a small group of trauma-stricken people who are on that list, people who fell victim to farm attacks or farm murders. And none of them have heard anything back from either the embassy or the Department of Foreign Affairs in the USA, and none of them know exactly what will be awaiting them. You know, what's on offer. Will they stay in tents? Will they get a green card? Whatever it is.
So what you're saying, Dr. Yaga, is that
is a loss.
from your list, at least of 1,000 or so that you have looked at, those 49 are not represented in that particular list. However, be it, they did get this particular status. And the issue really at hand is, what is the feeling of your grouping as Agri SA Initiative on this disinformation at two levels? One, that there is white genocide or Afrikaner genocide in South Africa, but two, that there is a carte blanche grabbing of land by the government of South Africa.
We do not know where the disinformation comes from. Hey, we hear that disinformation has been spread, but we don't know from where it came, and no one could tell us. Even when we confronted some of the politicians who said that there's disinformation that's been spread, we asked, who? What exactly is the disinformation and who is spreading it? We maintain, and all our farmers' organizations in South Africa maintain, that there is no genocide, but there's a massive problem with safety on farms and with farm murders, and we expect government to do more about it. We are pushing government to act on it. We feel government does not do enough. And we hold them accountable for it. We say we understand that some farmers would eventually say, we've had enough of this. Because they have exhausted their internal remedies. I mean, we've taken the song, Kill the Farmer, Kill the Boer, to court, and then to the Court of Appeal. And then the judges at the Constitutional Court decided for some reason to close the doors of the court on us. They never heard our case at the Constitutional Court. So where should we go with it next? Next, we must go abroad. Next, we must go to the United Nations or to the International Court of Justice. Because we have tried internally, and the doors have been shut to us. When it comes to land grabs, there is no widespread grabbing of farmland at the moment in South Africa. But it can happen. I mean, if I would be expropriated at nil compensation, I would have no income, no money to fight this expropriation. I think if that would happen to farmers, they would also grab an opportunity to go to the USA. And this new act actually paves the way to that. There's no guarantee that it will not happen, because this new act can let it happen legally.
Interesting that you say that. An organization that you used to be a head of, Agri SA, holds a different view. The Expropriation Act of 23rd January 2025 has sparked a lot of political debate, but the disinformation is that there is a seizure and confiscation of private property that has taken place. They're saying there has not been any such, nor has any land been expropriated without compensation. Isolated cases of land grabs and trespassing have been dealt with. Additionally, rumors linking farm murders to the signing of the act are baseless and irresponsible. That's Agri SA.
Yeah, Agri SA, remember, we originated from an expropriation at less than market-related compensation, the expropriation from Ackerland. When I was in Agri SA still in Limpopo, we took that matter to court and we won the court case against government. The court order was that the property should immediately be returned to the original farmer. And also there, Agri SA decided not to join us in that court case. Hence, we launched an organization, SAAI, because we feel the farmer should not wonder whether somebody will assist them should their number come up for an expropriation at less than market-related compensation. And remember, it does not need to be nil compensation or without compensation to be devastating, because very few farmers farm on a cash basis. We all put our property up as collateral for loans, for production. Yes. So should government, on average, compensate the farmer only 60%, it would mean that the bank and the cooperative would get their money, but the farmer will walk out naked. And what should happen to that farmer then? Where should they go?
There's a sense that none of that will happen because there is no new expropriation powers that have been introduced. The Act does not introduce such powers. In fact, the legal framework for land reform, including the Land Reform Labour Tenure Act, is in place. The Extension of Security of Tenure Act is in place. The Restitution of Land Rights Act is in place. And the Provisional of Land and Assistance Act remains unchanged. So none of that is actually an issue here.
No, it is. We are currently in court with a number of expropriations. One of the cases we have in court right now is that of Plaaswerf Beleggings, where a property was expropriated in revenge by the Provincial Department of Health in Gauteng. This property is at Heidelberg, and it was on the property, there's a mortuary, which was leased out to the department. And when government stopped paying their lease, the owner acted against them, got a court order to throw them out, and the next thing he was expropriated and never paid. And it's already 5 years ago, but the case is still pending in court. And you know, this owner must fight with their own money against government, which is fighting back with taxpayers' money. So, no, it's not true that it is not happening at all or that it cannot happen. It is actually happening, and we are fighting it in court right as we speak.
All right, Dr. Tiaga, I'm out of time, but let me say this as a way out. I mean, as we sit right now, what do you think is the responsibility of organized agriculture to deal with this disinformation?
We must first find the people who spread the disinformation, hey, and no one could have could tell us up to now who it is.
Yeah, there are some
who are saying there's no large-scale land grabbing and that there is no
Dr. Tiaga,
genocide.
There are some who says that AFRIFORUM could have been one of the organizations who went overseas and spread such. You had Barend Petrus Ace at one of your events this past week. Did you put that to him?
Barend Petrus Ace never said that there's a genocide or large-scale land grabbing. Where did he say that?
No, I'm saying you had him representing AFRIFORUM. Did you ask him what the position of AFRIFORUM is? I didn't say he said that.
Yes. AFRIFORUM's position is that there's no large-scale land grabbing at the moment or no genocide at the moment.
Is that their position? And so they're saying this
is their position.
This disinformation.
Remember, they were at the media ombudsman 5 times over the last 2 months.
Yeah. And
they won each one of those cases.
Yeah. And so they are not part of spreading that disinformation in the United States. Not at all.
No, definitely not.
So the United States is making this up, or at least somebody is feeding them. Is that your view?
Yeah, because we heard Trump saying that there's a genocide, hey, but we don't know who is telling him that there's a genocide.
All right. Dr. Diach, appreciate your time.